back to my original point of ensuring that your M365 subscription tenancy itself is set up with the right security controls before you start deploying any AI agents or anything else. We do offer a free security assessment of your Microsoft 365 tenancy. So it's not Microsoft Secure Score. It's not an assessment using any Microsoft tool itself. It's an independent assessment that we do based on CISA's Secure Cloud Business Application Framework, the SCUBA framework. And then at the end of that, you get a good size report. It's 30 or 40 pages on average. And it talks about all of the different controls, the way you've configured it, and against that framework, where the gaps are and what you can do potentially to remediate those gaps. And if you need help remediating, we've got a team of consultants. We've got a security operations center as well that does monitoring. So we've got a lot of capability in-house to help you on that journey of remediation. But the starting point is actually understanding where you stand right currently at this day and age. So that's what this assessment covers. Thank you, Raji.
Excellent. So what we'll do is we'll go into questions now. I'm just going to go into the next slide. We got 2 QR codes for Australia and New Zealand. And there was a question on when is AI Accelerator session. So this is not a session that we do public. It's per organization. This is for your organization. So we can either do it in, most of the sessions are in person. So we can either do an in-person hour-and-a-half session with yourselves or online. I've done a couple online, majority as well. So if you want to sign up for them or get in touch with them, please use these QR codes for that. So that's that question there. I'm just going to go through the questions around that we've given. The Institute of Community Directors has an excellent one, and their policy. So this is talking about the policies. Could you clarify whether it's worthwhile to create agents given the added complexity? Specifically, how does the value for money and required effort compared between building agents and simply using Copilot in its standard form? Excellent question. So I'll post a link in there. We wrote an article around why AI projects fail, and we talk about the total cost of ownership and ROI, and that's really important. So to answer that question, what I suggest is, and this is why we are promoting for you to deploy Copilot Chat, because that will give you immediate benefit of using an LLM in organizations. We get your staff ready to use AI and also get used to using AI. And that is a really good thing. That could give you a lot of value straight out of the box. You already have the licensing, and we can do a free assessment for you. And if you want to do the implementation, there's a very small piece of engagement you can do with us. We'll set up the environment properly and help you roll that out. Around whether it's worthwhile creating agents, it comes down to use cases. So in that AI Accelerator session, and you didn't ask me anything session, we can work on specific we can help you identify use cases that are going to give you the best return on investment, and then really identify what kind of an impact it can have from a financial as well as other type of it. So it's really important to understand that. Depending on what stat you use, 90% of AI projects fail because they don't pick the right use case, and a number of other aspects as well. But picking the right use cases that gives you ROI is really important. I'll give you an example. One of our customers had hundreds and thousands of emails coming in, and they had to manually, it all comes to the CRM, and somebody sits there and goes and classifies something. I touched on that in a use case, classifies them into different departments. They had 20% of these, and the users can classify as well. They can pick a category, and 20% of those were incorrectly classified. Now, if one of the things we're looking at is building a classification algorithm. Now, even if that algorithm is 50% accurate, which means that they will save at least 40, 50 hours, probably like a FTE, one person's time per week, right? 40, 50 hours a week, just by having one. Now, if you transport that into, employee costs, it's not about replacing an employee. They have a small, think about 5 staff looking at it, they're overwhelmed. And sometimes they're backlogged to months to respond to these requests, right? So that's a perfect scenario where you can think about, you can get the ROI calculated really easily. Look at also high volume tasks that are, if you can make a small impact, and that could have a big return on investment as well. Great question. So that's that question. And in the past, we implemented solutions. Okay, so in the past, So we've implemented solutions with support models, knowledge sharing, and strategies like train the trainer programs and FAQ. This is not the case anymore for AI. What would be good support model for AI? Again, a great question. What I suggest, one of the things I've worked on in the past, and I've seen some universities and organizations and do is social learning, right? And we do it internally as well. So have the formal policies and everything, have the formal training, but set up a Teams channel where you can share your chats, have regular catch-ups or meetups, or once a month you talk about what you've done really well, or have continuous learning and social learning and specific programs to for your staff. And in lunch and learns kind of things. And we do have them in CBS as well. And we're going to do one pretty soon, Dan and I as well. So it's about creating that social learning. And the other thing about it is it's really difficult to pick which course, because courses are outdated. They get outdated pretty quickly. Social learning is good because people can bring in what they have seen. And, you know, because there's so much stuff going on, I mean, I've given up keeping up with anything, and it's a reality. And I learned from others. I learned from yourselves and through, you know, socials and my peer network and working with customers. And I think it's important that you create that social learning ecosystem within your organization. Great question. Presentation, I talked about that. Based on my experience, both simple and complex agent encounter fundamental limitations. For instance, the access I have isn't easily transferred to agents, or an agent might not be able to create a Word document, even though it usually can. Issues like permissions, access, and complexity have often kept me stuck with agent worlds. Would love to receive feedback from other experience. Again, another great question. So what's happening is that even through Microsoft Entra ID and everything, there's an agent will have its own identity, own permissioning structure, right? So in the past, what we used to do is we used to create what's called a service account that has permissions to run certain jobs or certain things. And then we were creating that for agents as well. But what's happening is that, you know, even Microsoft is doing that. Agents will have their own user account and own permissioning structure, just like another employee. And then you can set specific role-based access to those agents, what they can do and what they can't do, just like a person would. And that's how you can control, and then you can see the audit trail and how things are done. Okay, so that's a good question. And this space is evolving, but that's where we're heading, that agent having the digital identity, just like your own staff member. Okay, does the security assessment help assist with this, with assessing permissions, access to what, who has? An example is we are currently building an agent that is meant to pass data from interacting with the user to a planner. I'm now finding out that there might be access level issues, which is finding it after the solution has been after the solution has been implemented. Great question. So I'll keep before I hand over to Dan around the security assessment piece, I'll touch on the other piece around just general access, right? There's two things. It's really important to understand who has access to what, especially if you're using things like Copilot, the paid version, because the way you set up your permissioning structure it impacts it. For example, imagine you have an agent that you've given access to a SharePoint site, and you don't have access to certain parts of that SharePoint site. And if the agent's only going to use your rights context to give you answers, so it's going to miss out a certain aspect of it, and the answers could be different or not complete or wrong. So that's really important. And now the question you're asking is, can the security assessment detect that? I'll hand over to Dan. Do you want to take that one, Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Raji. The security assessment is mainly looking at your broader tenancy level control. So it's not going into specifics of, you know, if you've over-provisioned access for certain APIs, or, you know, if you're looking at specific applications. it's definitely something we can help you with. And more than happy to have a chat in either one of the sessions or just individually as well, just to understand a little more about, how that access has been provisioned, what's the spread of technology, how many applications are you interacting with, and all of that. But the security assessment is a very, I guess, rigid in terms of it's looking at the Scuba framework and it's looking at your tenancy. So it's looking at all the controls around the technology that's within your tenancy. So look at things like privileged access, like how many privileged are you, like, do you have too many privileged access accounts? How many? And, what's recommended that you should have? What level of access do they have? But may not go into the granular aspects of inter-application access control.
Just tagging on to that. So if the specific things you need around, okay, now you deployed an agent which has got a data source and now you're having either challenges with access or people overshare it, there are tools that you can do access scans and access audits, and we can help you with that from a consulting kind of point of view. So maybe have that initial session around what your requirements are, or show us a problem, and we can either recommend some tools that are already out there out of the box so you can pre-purchase, or we can do some access audits around your knowledge repositories.